I'll try it again. Hi everyone, it's great to see you all again. I hope you are doing well. It's a lovely sunny day. Could you please start by introducing yourself in the comments? It's nice to know who's here. So just say hello or hi in the comments, and I hope that you get something from today's whatever it is, episode, show, lesson, whatever it is we're doing here, a live stream. The plan today is quite simple, and that is to go through P4 to make sure you know exactly what you're doing for P4. P4 is the pitch, and it's the chance that you get to actually show your amazing product to the person who's paying you the money. So let's see who we have got. Let's see who we've got in here today. Hi Josh, it's great. Meme Master, it's nice to see you. Kane, hi, how are you? Jafia, hi, good, nice to see you. Jamie, same thing. So as you arrive, guys, just put your names in the comments so that I can say hello to you, and that way it's good to know who's here. Otherwise it's a bit like just talking to myself and looking at myself and there's thing to do. So let's jump back and try to get through what we need to do. The plan is to go through P4 so you understand exactly what you need to do. Time for questions at the end. I've got a few questions for you that I'm going to ask you to answer as we go through, but hopefully by the end of this you'll understand exactly what you need to do to get P4 done and dusted, and I'll take you through all of the different steps of that. So I'm going to jump in and I'm going to show you, let's go in and have a look at it on, here we go, on here. So this is what we're going to be looking at, and let's have a look first of all at what the requirement for P4 is. There we are. So first of all, this is the guidance from the spec, and it talks about presenting a proposed design solution to the client. That's the overview. Of course, that in itself is a bit vague, doesn't tell us a huge amount, but we can drill in and get a bit more detail. Some might say this paragraph is too much detail, which I'll do in one breath. Learners must present the presentation must be fit for purpose. We'll get to that in a second. And they should have undertaken appropriate quality checks. I'll explain to you what that means. It should be sufficiently detailed to enable the client to understand the key features of their proposal. Evidence could be in the form of a formal presentation that is videoed. In fact, I've cut that down because yours will be in the form of a videoed presentation. So what I'm going to do first of all is have a look at some of that detail so you understand exactly what it means. Because once, like all of these things, once you get the shape of what's expected, the rest of it, the detail falls into place quite easily. So I've broken this down now. That was the long paragraph. Let's break it down into a series of bullet points so you understand what's going on. Hi, Jamie. First of all, you've got to do a presentation, and think about this as the pitch. This is you pitching your idea to your client. Now, your client may actually very well be present. There is a high likelihood that Mr. Godfrey, the driving instructor, the guy for whom this was written, who's got a driving school, it's highly likely that he will be there at some or all of your presentations. And equally, we've got another businessman who may well be joining to see your presentation. So no stress, no pressure, but it better be good. The presentation must be formal. I'll go into a bit more detail on that, but what we're talking about is that this is a business presentation, effectively. It needs to be fit for purpose. Could a decision be made based on the information that you're giving? And you know, that's probably the simplest and most obvious way to actually understand this. Could a prospective client make a decision based on the information that you've given? And if the answer is yes, then you've done the job. If the answer is no, because key elements are missing, then you might need to go and do it again. Need to be appropriate quality checks, and that's about being accurate, not about making stuff up, but I'll give you a bit more detail on that. Enough detail to grasp the key features, which is really a repetition of the idea of it being, of a decision being able to be taken based on it, and not detailed speaker notes, but videoed. So they do say either detailed speaker notes or videos, but you're going to be doing video, which means that you don't need to do the detailed speaker notes in the presentation software. So here are some ideas for you. Hello, Mr. Godfrey. Let's say hello to you. Well done. It's good to see you here. Okay, the key areas is that you make a presentation. It's going to last 5 minutes. Where's my hand? 5 minutes. Now, 5 minutes isn't 4 minutes, and 5 minutes isn't 6 minutes. It needs to actually be 5 minutes. And When you do your presentation, and it's one of these key things. When I went for my role here as senior head of year, they asked us to make a presentation. If I went beyond the 5 minutes they gave me, they said, thank you very much, and stopped me. That was it. And even though, so if you leave your best points for minute 6, it's not going to get made. So it really needs to be 5 minutes. And I can assure you the difficulty with this will be getting it down to 5 minutes, not getting it up to 5 minutes. You'll see that when you start to make it. So once you've made your pitch, you're probably going to use PowerPoint or some kind of presentation software. It doesn't matter what it is. Rehearse your pitch. You've got it 5 minutes long. You're going to deliver it in Zoom next week. Next Thursday and Friday, I've got a slot for you, which I will tell you about towards the end of this. Your presentation will be recorded, and that's what we will be sending to the moderator. So on Zoom, we're able to record the Zoom calls. So we'll record you doing your presentation, and you can use notes if you like. So now I've got a question for you. Answers in the comments, please. Do I have to include detailed speaker notes in my presentation? Answers in the comments, please. Absolutely wonderful. We have several correct answers. No, no, no. You're all absolutely right. The answer is no. It's just that it's an area for confusion. The advantage of you doing this course now is that we've run it a few times and some things seem to confuse people. Because you're going to do a video and you're being videoed talking, you don't need detailed speaker notes, all right? So if you look at the spec, you could be confused. It says either videoed or detailed speaker notes. You're doing the video, so you don't need them. However, you can use notes when you're actually doing the presentation, and I suggest that you do. And I suggest that you end up with having a couple of bullet points on something about this size, which will probably be enough for you. But the truth is, we've found that when students do these presentations, they're actually better when they don't look at notes at all, because you know this thing off by heart. You've already invested hours and hours and hours in this whole process, so you do know what you're doing. So let's jump into the second point now, which was the notion that this has to be formal, right? Formal presentation. So think Dragon's Den here. This process involves you standing up in front of someone who you want money from, and you're going to give them a very reason for giving you that money. So it needs to be formal in terms of your business language. So you're not saying, yeah, it's like cheap. You're saying we've got a more costly or a less costly option. In terms of the structure of it, it needs to be a structured presentation, which I'll take you through in a minute, but where you set the scene, you say what you're going to do, you say how you're going to do it, and then you go for your final sales pitch at the end. And I'll take you through that in a minute. So think about typeface, think about appropriate typeface to use for it, think about the appropriate look that you might choose. Template is the word I'm looking for in PowerPoint. Some will work better than others, but it needs to be quite formal. This is a formal business presentation. Think about legibility, which means how readable your text is on screen, and also think about the amount of text that you put on screen. One of the things that just drives me absolutely crazy is this notion of putting everything that you're going to say on screen. It's something that you start doing in year 7 and you keep doing all the way through to year 13. The only thing that you should have on screen are the key bullet points, and you're going to talk around the rest of it. I tried to show you an example of what I'm expecting to see. When you're looking at my presentation there, I've got 8 clear short bullet points. I've been through this presentation probably over 12 times, reducing words that I don't need, cutting it down so it's short, it's sharp, it's accurate. The first thing any student ever asks me when they come in the room is, what are we doing today, sir? So this is your way of showing your audience what it is that you're going to be doing. So make sure that you do it in that structure. I've got a little presentation man there just to add a bit of interest to it. So that's the kind of structure that you're looking for, and all the rest of it is you talking. And while this might sound daunting, you already know a lot about this subject. Think of all the work you've done on your methodologies for P1M1, think about with P2 all that work you did going through every single feature, and then think about M2, the feasibility study. You've made it through that unscathed. I imagine if you had to talk to a stranger about this process for 15 minutes, you could probably do it without taking a breath. All right, so think about the images, appropriate images, not just random images. And again, don't let your use of images mess up the idea it's a business presentation. You see the thing I've got there? It kind of works because it's someone presenting. All right, think about SPAG. Please check your spelling. Check your SPAG. It's not okay to have spelling and grammar mistakes when you're doing formal presentations for people. And there's a spell check that you can use, so try to avoid those if you can. And think about your colour scheme. Make sure it doesn't make your eyes bleed. And that's really, really important. All right, so we've got another question now. And it's one that I hope you will answer very quickly. Do I write everything that I say in the pitch? So could we please have answers in the comments? Do I need to write everything that I'm going to say in the pitch? Yeah, you're all absolutely on point here. The answer is no. We've got many correct answers there. We've got lots of dings. Everyone gets it. That is absolutely outstanding. You don't. All right. So listen, I don't want to see absolutely everything written out because it's what amateurs do. You've used PowerPoint so much in school. Can you see the amount of text that I've got on the screen? That is what you're looking for. And mine's a bit colourful. My audience is different. My audience here is teenagers, so I've tried to make it slightly more colourful. When you're doing something Dragon's Den style, no one's looking for super colourful images. All right, so super colourful text rather. But if you are going to put colours there, you've done some work on this. Use the colour wheel and make sure your colours actually complement each other. Or just do black and white. It's absolutely fine. So the answer was no. Don't fill the entire screen with text. Use tables and use images. Tables are your friend. Tables are a really good way to present costs. So use tables for that purpose. All right. That should take you through that one. Then this fit for purpose statement, which was in the marking guidance, and this is a question: when they say fit for purpose, are you doing what a presentation giving a pitch for a product is supposed to be doing? Have you stated how you're going to solve each request, each feature request that is? Have you listed all the costs, or certainly the main ones? Have you explained the scheduling, the Gantt chart, and with the cost, the table that you put into M2 or P2 somewhere? Have you covered the legal implications? Don't need much on that. 60 seconds, in fact 30 seconds or 20 seconds, just stating that you have covered it and what GDPR means. The best way of doing this, which I'll get to in a second, is to actually demonstrate your product. In other words, you've been building up this wireframe that you started making for P3, and which will be all that you have to do for P5 is just submit your wireframe. So my advice to you is save yourself a week later on, get your wireframe done and dusted, or at least 3-4 pages of it, and use that as the basis of your product demonstration. And that will actually be probably 2/3 of what you finally have to do is talking through your demonstration. It's the most logical way to highlight the features and to explain what it is that you're going to do. And fact check your claims. Don't make stuff up. Now, you don't need to show your bibliography in the PowerPoint because you will already have done that as part of P2 and M2, but don't make stuff up. Not if you can't back it up. If you're making statements of cost, of fact about technology, make sure that you can actually back it up with fact, because you should be simply drawing on what you've done for P2 and M2. So are the facts and figures accurate? Again, quality checks. Put some images for the products you're going to use, maybe dash cam, put a few images, be nice to see what he's spending his money on. If I was throwing 3 or 4 or 5 grand at you, I'd like to see the shiny new dash cam that I'm going to get. That would quite excite me. Cameras always excite me. What about your rationale for scheduling? So a nice screen print of your Gantt chart with a bit of an explanation. You know that paragraph you wrote in M2 about your rationale for scheduling, about this shows this and this shows that, and you think it'll take about a week to program, and then you've got to test it. A quick talk through of that, again, 20-30 seconds. And your proof could be elsewhere, like I said, in P2 or M2, but don't make stuff up. Right, this is more challenging for you. The 5 features that Justin asked for, could you tell me what they are? In the comments, please. The 5 features that Justin has asked for. What are the 5 key features of the product? You were a lot better on the yes/no questions. It's all gone deathly silent. Okay. Let's go back because we're not getting much from that at all. I'm hoping this stream hasn't gone down. So let's go back to here. The 5 key areas you were looking for were as follows. Bookings, cancellations, Tutor Pro integration. Tutor Pro is the software that Justin currently uses to do the theory side of things. So you've got a theory test and a practical, haven't you? It's been many years since I did a driving test, but you've got the theory test and the driving test. There's only one test when I did it. The dash cam feature, social media and comments. And the comments was Justin leaving comments for his students. All right, so those are the key things that we are looking for. Oh, I can see I've got some answers there. Josh got in with, let's have a look and see what you've got. I didn't pick that one up. I think the delay is actually increasing here. So let's have a look and see what we've got. Josh has got making a booking, asking questions, theory test pro, dashcam footage, leaving feedback. Yes. So that's the stuff that you need to demonstrate that you understand how you're going to solve in the presentation, which isn't a great surprise to you. So I want to now jump forward and look at how you're going to actually make this thing. I imagine that you probably don't need me to do this, but I thought it might be good to give you some kind of structure that you could maybe move around to suit the presentation that you're going to make. So think about this, something like Dragon's Den. You're going to tell the story. So my name is Josh. I'm an app designer and I've been asked to solve Justin's problem. I've been asked to help Justin, Mr. Godfrey, who's got a driving school. He currently uses a paper-based system. He wants to go to an electronic system using an app, and he's asked me to design an app which does this, 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 and this. Boom. That's your first 20 seconds done for you. Don't just start talking as though we know who you are or what you're doing. There was a lot of that in M2 and P2, as though, who are you guys? You wrote a feasibility study, and some of you just started talking about dashcam straight away, which was a bit discombobulating. So make sure you set the scene. Tell us what you're going to do. Introduce yourself, set the scene, outline the contents of your pitch. Tell us what you're going to talk about. So just go through, today I'm going to talk about X, Y, Z and B, and go through your list and then talk about things in that order. Talk about the features and the benefits of your product. The features are the dash cam. The benefits are the fact that it means that students are able to look at their driving and find ways to improve before the next session. And so features and benefits are a key way if you ever end up in sales and they send you on a sales course, day one, features and benefits. And that's what it's all about. A product has a certain feature, but it also has certain benefits which make the customers want to buy it, right? Product demo. Product demo is probably the best way of doing most of this. Once you've done your intro, you've said who you are, you said what you're doing, I would want to show the product, and through showing the product, get through as much of the rest of it as you can, all right? And then technology, show some costs, show some timings, and that would be maybe a slide each talking about, and let's jump in actually. Mr. Godfrey's made a point here, which I think we should probably have a look at. Mr. Godfrey says Justin is going to be a part of these meetings as a meaningful employer. A meaningful employer, as I'm saying this, Mr. Godfrey, jump in and correct me if I'm if I'm misrepresenting this. But the course that you're doing has it has a vocational element to it, and therefore we are supposed to include employers in the teaching process and in the learning process, so that you get a deeper understanding of how what you're doing will be used in real employment, which some of you will have next year and which some of you will have after you finish university or done your next level of training. So Justin has agreed to actually come in and to sit in on the Zoom panel with these meetings, and he's really excited about doing that. We've also got another gentleman who works in the hotel trade. He manages hotels, and he's also shown an interest because he works with Mr. Godfrey on Unit 17 about the Internet of Things, which you've yet to do. That's a coursework unit that's coming up. So if you've got any further questions for Justin at that point, you can just ask. So, one of the key things to remember is that once we finished doing P1, we stepped away from this being you learning about methodologies in isolation to you actually creating something as though this is a real scenario. This is a simulation that we are in now. And so therefore, when you do your presentation, think about it in terms of a simulation and have a go at it. It's nerve-wracking doing presentations. Rehearse it, make it good, make it exactly 5 minutes. Sell your product, because do you know what? When you go for your first job interview, when you're in your first role, you're going to be doing exactly this sort of thing, especially given that you've chosen to do IT. Okay, so I've talked about technology, cost and timings, and a summary call to arms. If you've ever watched Dragon's Den, you'll notice that at the end of each presentation, they will do a final, this is why you should buy my product, a kind of big finale at the end to say you cannot do without my product. And so that's where you're going to do your sort of final few words of sales pitch, because this is going to help you. You should spend £5,000 because ... whatever budget it was that I gave you. So breaking it down, start off by saying who you are and introducing yourself. Set the scene and the scenario, the driving school, what Justin does now, what he's asked you to do, why does he want you to do it, outline what you're going to say, why you're doing it, what the product will do, the advantages over the current system, the cost, the schedule, and why spend money. All pretty obvious. I'll put this on YouTube straight afterwards so you can see it. Ultimately, why should he pay you £3,000 or £5,000 for this app? What's in it for him? What does your app do, and what benefit will it bring Justin and Justin's students? Because there's a bit of both in there. In terms of the demonstration, I said to you the demo is a really good way of doing this. So show your wireframes or your prototypes, annotate them. So maybe use some boxes and some arrows to annotate your wireframe. Pardon me. Demonstrate the key features. At least show how you make a booking. Maybe show what the Theory Pro screen will look like. You could show the dash cam. You don't have to show absolutely everything, because don't forget that going back to the start of this, it's enough information for the client to make a decision. And that doesn't mean you've got to show every single little thing, but definitely the booking and a couple of other features over a couple of slides would be a great way to deliver this. Justin screen versus student screens, that could be a good thing. If you're going back to your use case diagram, that would be a very good thing to do there. And maybe touch on some of your design decisions. The fact that I think most of you asked me about colour, and I came back to you and said, this guy, unfortunately, is a Manchester United fan. You can't help some people, but therefore he wanted the colours of Manchester United. So you might want to touch on some of the decisions you made around typeface, some of the decisions you made around colour, about the buttons, about you. Again, don't overcomplicate it. You may want to include that, but don't forget you've only got 5 minutes to do this. So make sure you cover the platforms that you're looking at and the coding language, but again, you don't need to go into much detail because you've done that already in M2. And make sure that you've already done that. You've talked about hardware and software as part of M2. So that is pretty much everything that I wanted to run through. And I guess the question now is whether or not any of you have got any questions that you want to ask me. Although what's quite annoying is that the slide that I wanted, which is the appointments for next week, hasn't actually carried through. So what I'll do is get that up there. Can you stick? I'll put this big screen up so you can ask me some questions. If you've got, not that one, if you've got any questions put them in the comments for me now. Mr. Godfrey has said, look at the link I put on Google Classroom. Yes, I forgot to mention this actually. I'm sorry, Mr. Godfrey. Mr. Godfrey found a really good app for making apps, if that makes any sense, which is a bit of a grown-up alternative to PowerPoint. And actually, it would be very useful for you to learn that. PowerPoint would be the slightly easier option because you know how to use it, but the Code.org App Lab is actually a really, really good app, and you may well want to use that one instead. And in fact, the advantage of using that one is that when it comes to doing the gaming unit with me, you'll probably find that it is an awful lot. You can just use another version of that, isn't it, to do it, which would be really, really handy. So what I'm going to do now is put on screen for you the timetable for next week. Just bear with me a second here. That should just about do it. So let's get this on screen for you. Let's have a look. Yay, here we go. So this is the plan for next week. So just taking you through it, we have got your names in 2 columns. And you can see that you've either doing your presentation on Thursday the 17th, which is week Thursday, not this Thursday coming, but the Thursday afterwards. And you're either doing it on Thursday or Friday. Bad luck, Aaron. You are the first one through the door, but you'll be done. You'll be done by 9:35. So the way it's going to work is this. I'm going to get 3 of you to log into a Zoom meeting, the same Zoom meeting, the one we always use. That URL and that password stays the same for all of them. So you can use that to get into any of these meetings. So at 9:30, Aaron, Josh and Kane are all going to try to get into the Zoom meeting. I'll get Aaron in first. I've got the other 2 of you waiting there. And then I will get the... Yeah, actually, I've thought about this because, in fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to edit this PowerPoint. Mr. Godfrey said it would be good to share this information online. I'm not going to put this slide online, so I'm going to edit this and cut out this part. But I'll put this information there for you. Only you're seeing this because only you've got access to this URL. So this is only being watched by you guys, but I won't put this online. So don't worry too much about that. So at 9:30, Josh will log in along with Aaron and Kane, and then I will pick you out one by one, and you will do your presentations. We'll make you... Zoom's quite clever because it means that we can make you the what's the word? The host of the meeting, and then you can share your screen. I'm not even sure we need to make you host. We can record that, and then the job's done. At the end of it, we will give you 2 or 3 things to improve. Typically, what we'll ask you to improve will be either the colour, or to change something about the buttons, or to change something about the design. And once you've done that, we will then ask you to resubmit it, and that's actually part of the next challenge, which is actually a good chance for me to go over to here and show you this. So if you look at this screen now, we are currently looking at... Oh, where are we? We're on... So P4 we're doing next, okay? So P4 is pitch the application, detailed speaker notes. You can forget that because that's the video that you're doing. Enough information for the client to make an informed decision, all right? And if you look at the inset box that I've got in that purple square, after P4, the next thing we go to is M3. So if you can find M3 on the purple screen there, it says evidence communication with client. And that, do you remember when I made you all, I've made you all email Justin, there'll be a time when you'll use those screenshots. Well, that time has come now. So evidence communication with the client, which is that you'll evidence your initial email to the client and the responses back. You'll agree the adaptations with the client. Now, these adaptations were agreed in the presentation. So after the presentation, we send you an email from Justin saying, thanks for your presentation, it was really good, we would like you to change X, Y and Z. And so those, and then you can write back and say, these are the adaptations, based on your email, I'm going to make the following changes. You then make those changes. So say for example, if I've asked you to change I've asked you to change the buttons from being rounded to being rectangles, all right, as an example. You will then do a screenshot of the original prototype, which with the rounded buttons for the sake of argument. You then change it to make it the squared buttons, and then you do a before and after. So you're showing the way it was before and the way it was after. So that's where the making adaptations before and after comes from. You understand? So you're showing the fact that you've had meaningful communication with the client all the way through, and then you're going to agree the adaptations, and you're going to show the before and the after. All right, so that's the key thing there. So next thing, once you've done, where are we? That was M3. We then go to P5, which is your prototype, which you have partially made. That was the wireframe you made in P3, and you simply submit that. So it's dead easy. And again, you may well, because some of you will have time on your hands at this point, and you may well want to use the web address that Mr. Godfrey put in the comments. This one, let's have a look. This one here, where did you put it? There we go. code.org app lab. You may want to use that, because that will be time well spent for when it comes to making the game later on. All right, so therefore you have then gone and done P5. P6 is when we ask you to so you do the same process twice, in that you do your presentation, you get some feedback, you make the changes you show before and after. P6 is almost a rerun, except rather than asking Justin, this is about making a questionnaire, and this is all about learning how to make a questionnaire, because you can make a questionnaire in 5 minutes. Making a questionnaire with questions that are logical. Do you remember all that idea of funneling questions and yes or no, and going from closed questions to open questions in order to elicit information from people? That's the work you'll be doing there. You make a questionnaire using Google Forms. You send it out to 5 or 10 people in the class. They answer it, and based on their answers, you summarize the feedback in P6, and we use Google Forms because Google Forms produces this beautiful summary, pie charts, bar charts, and great summaries. And you can also submit the Excel spreadsheet that comes with it as your evidence. And then we finish off with doing D2, which is where, based on the feedback you've taken from the clients, you then do a before and after again. You identify the improvements and you make them. So for example, Kane said that Josh needs to change the colours because the background colour's hurting his eyes. So therefore Josh makes that change, and he does a before slide that he screenshots what it looks like before. He makes the changes and he shows an after slide, and there's a little annotation about what you've done. So I guess it's always good to do a bit of a look forward to see what is coming. Have any of you got any questions about the 17th is the Wednesday? Can I not count? Oh, I haven't changed that. Okay, good spot. So in fact, it's Thursday and Friday, all right? So it's not this Thursday, but week Thursday and week Friday. Thanks, Kane. Is that right? Have I got my numbers wrong? But it's week Thursday and week Friday. All right, I will put those appointments in Google Classroom for you, so that you have those. Can I beg you, please, to make sure that you are there on time, because it's going to be monumentally painful to have to reschedule these things. Also, I know that you're going to be feeling quite anxious and nervous, some of you, about doing it. Well, do you know what? It's all part of the process. It's there for a reason. The more you do these presentations, the more you do these pitches, the less stressful they are. We can all remember the first time that we stood in front of a class and took a lesson, and it's the most scary thing in the world. But after a while, it becomes second nature, a bit like just talking to people, looking at a camera. You just get used to it. So the more you do it, the better you get at it. And incidentally, we are going to give you feedback on the presentation itself, but it's also a really good reason for us to give you feedback on your presentation style. And the thing that we most often say to students is, slow down, take your time, enjoy it, smile, and just enjoy the moment. Because people tend to start going quickly. The more quickly they go, the more likely they are to forget things. All right, so rehearse it beforehand, and my advice to you is, don't have any notes. Just stare straight in the camera and talk us through the product that you've spent many, many hours making. So, we have 13 people here. Has anybody got any questions that they would like to ask me? And Mr. Godfrey, have you got anything that you would like to say to the group? Because we have just under half the people here, and thanks for coming, guys. But have any of you got anything that you would like to put on there? We'll just wait for a moment or two for you to do that, and then we can call it a day. Okay, that's a good question from Kane, actually, and it's not a random question at all. While I'm answering Kane's question, can you think back to what I've just done? And if you've got anything you want to ask, just do it now, because there's no need to be embarrassed. If you're asking me a question, the chances are that no one else knows it as well. All right, so there's no such thing as a stupid question. The only daft thing is not to ask it. So Kane's question is, do we have to have our webcam on? Yes, you do. Because they want to see you doing the presentation, sent an audio file that wouldn't be evidence that you had done it. And also in the mark scheme, in the marking guidance rather, it states that it should be videoed, or it's a PowerPoint with detailed speaker notes, but you'd have to do the presentation anyway. And then we'd have to sign a document saying that you had done the presentation. So the easiest way of doing it is to simply stand up and give the presentation. And Josh, again, Kane, does that answer your question? I know that a lot of you are sitting there thinking, "Oh, this is going to be the worst day of my life. I've got to do a Zoom meeting and present this. I suddenly wish I hadn't chosen IT." Trust me, it's not that bad. You know what you're doing, and you are going to have to do this many, many, many times in your life. So you'll be fine. Josh's question is a good one. Do we need to address you as the client? Yes. For the purpose of the presentation, we are the client. And in fact, there is a high likelihood that Mr. Godfrey, the driving instructor, will be there. So you treat us as the client, and this is the chance for you over Zoom to sell your idea to us. So we've investing $3,000 on you, and you need to come back with it. Josh, does that answer your question? If not, put another question in the comments. This is good. This is the first time that you've really got in and asked questions, and this is the way that it should be. Elliot's got a good question as well. Do we have to dress formally or wear casual clothes? I don't know. What do you think, Mr. Godfrey? I'll leave that one up to you, because I don't know what the right answer would be there. Let's get back to you on that one in a second, Elliot. I hadn't thought about clothing. I suppose a formal presentation, should they be in formal clothes? Does it matter? Are you going to do a better presentation if you do it in formal clothes? I'm not sure. I'll let Mr. Godfrey, if he's still online. Let's see if he is. I know there's a bit of a delay here, so there's a delay of about 15 seconds before it gets to you, and then there's a further delay by the time that anyone's answers get typed in. But we will get an answer back to you on that. We've got a week or so for that, but it's a good question. Has anyone got any concerns about the shape of this presentation? In other words, what you're going to do, in what order, sequencing it, how the whole thing's going to work? You've all sat there with this Zoom interface, and you've got this ability to share screens, yeah? And as the host, we can press record at the start of it, and then we can simply save it, and then the job's done. So it should be fairly straightforward, and it shouldn't be too stressful. It would probably be better, or probably necessary, if you were doing it over a laptop. If you don't have access to a laptop, or you don't have your own laptop, would you be able to organise that for a week and a bit's time? I guess that might be the other question. So Elliot, we'll get back to you on that one. Has anyone got anything else that they would like to ask? Okay, how would you recommend that the presentation is not too long or too short? There's a series of very good questions. What I would do, I would go back through this presentation that I've just given you, and my first job would be to make the slides, and to simply, if you don't have access to a laptop, or you don't have your own laptop, would you be able to organise that for a week and a bit's time? I guess that might be the other question. So Elliot, we'll get back to you on that one. Has anyone got anything else that they would like to ask? Okay, how would you recommend that the presentation is not too long or too short? There's a series of very good questions. What I would do, I would go back through this presentation that I've just given you, and my first get the outline of the slide. So make the slides and just put the title in. So for example, you might want something like introduction, today's demonstration, today's pitch, and then running through what you're going to say, and then just to the next title, which would be the features, the benefits. So I would simply start by just making the titles of the slides and then dropping it in from there. For example, the Gantt chart slide is going to be a screenshot of the Gantt chart and how long you spend talking about it. So you could simply drop the Gantt chart in there and then go on to the next thing. You could drop in the costs, the table you've got for the costs into the costs slide, and then move on. And so just do the outline for each slide and then give it a little practice and see how long it takes you. And if what you've got there takes about 5 minutes, then you can get it all sort of filled out and looking a bit, you know, a bit nicer. But I would do the outline first. So even on a piece of paper, just get an outline of people in the past have done between 6 and 9 slides. There's no right or wrong way of doing it. And how you do the slides is up to you. And of course, the fact you might have 20 slides, but go through them really quickly. But equally, doing it, I would use the product demonstration as a way of kind of, as you're sort of, as you're building to hold it. All right, I'll do my introduction, and then I would, as quickly as possible, get into a demonstration, and over the course of that demo, try to tease out the features, tease out the technology, and all the other information. Do something on costs. Do something on. Make some mention of the legal side of it. You don't even need to do a slide on the legal as long as you talk about it. But have those 5 areas that you need to cover, those 5 features, and then just ask yourself the question: have I said enough for this to be for Justin to actually work out what he wants? To think, yeah, I actually would like that. So the challenge is doing it in 5 minutes. But I'm deadly serious. You must not go on beyond 5 minutes. We've had students going on for 15 minutes, and at the end of it, I've thought, even though I like your app, I wouldn't pay you because you've just wasted 10 minutes of my time. You can do this in 5 minutes, and that's actually as much the challenge here as doing the presentation. It's doing it within 5 minutes. So it's just a question of getting it down and down and down. It's like this PowerPoint that I'm showing you. This PowerPoint started off being 3 times as large, but I've actually reduced it and reduced it and reduced it and only got the words on there. I've not told you anything that you don't need to know. I've trimmed all the fat from it, and that's what we're doing here. But don't forget, it's a sales pitch, and that's the difference. You've got all the information, you've done it all in P2 and M2. This is just a sales pitch. All right, Kane, good question. Elliot and Josh, good question. Before we call it a day, 43 minutes in, does anyone else have anything that they would like to ask me? And don't forget that you've got my email address, which I think I've got on this one here. Okay, so pglinthomas@hazelwick.org.uk. Just email me if you need to know anything beyond that. All right. Now, all of you guys here, it's very impressive actually, because all of you guys here, there were very limited excuses, and those of you who've been a bit late with your work, you've actually managed to produce things on time. We've had all sorts of weird and wonderful reasons for people.
My wife is having a baby.
Not handing in their work. That was one of my favourite ones. Thankfully, we've not had that one yet. But keep going. And I meant to say to you actually before you go, let's just get you back onto here. The eagle-eyed among you may have noticed that I have rejigged the schedule slightly. We're talking top right here, okay? So if you remember, we had originally set you to do a task over half term. We knocked that back because that was a bit unkind. I think it was P1. Could be making it up. I think it was P1. No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't P1. I think it was P3. So move that back by a week, but you can see that we have now taken the last 2 tasks into next year, which makes this all the more manageable. And I think it's taking account of the fact that actually doing this from home is quite challenging. But to be honest with you, you have all done a really, really good job. I wanted also to draw your attention to the fact that you've got all of this stuff here to help you. I know that the videos are not the same thing as being in the classroom, but I should say to you, these videos that I put together, they have been made at the end of a fortnight of teaching of that subject. So again, while some of them go into more detail than you need, that's also the job of a teacher. I'm not just teaching you in order to get the qualification. I'm teaching you the stuff that you should know as part of this subject. So there's a P4 playlist there, which lasts a whole total of 20 minutes. It'll recap on pretty much everything I've said. All right, I've taken that and I've condensed it for today's purposes. So don't forget to go and have a look on that. I'll be getting this video from today up on YouTube, but I need to go and trim out the fact I had your surnames on there, so I'll get rid of that. That'll be up in about an hour or so. So that, I think, is pretty
My wife
much
is having
everything. Is there anything else that I need to do for you guys today? Is there anything else that we need to do? Do you have any further questions at all for me? You can look at my cute dog in the meantime. Anything else that you would like to ask me? That, by the way, is Roxy, and I'll never get back the time that it took to make her sit still, and a lot of treats. She's the most disobedient dog in the world. So, have any of you got any more questions? It's not looking like you do. In which case, I think that I will call it a day. Today is Tuesday. I'm not going to run a session on Friday because I don't think that I need to run anything else before you actually do these presentations. So if you want some information from me, ask. And if not, I will see you at the appointed time. I'll put this on Google Classroom so you've got access to it. Mr. Godfrey says, I look forward to next week. We all do. Can I make another plea? Don't leave us hanging with these meetings, because rescheduling it is going to be a monumental pain. You guys, especially all of you who are on this chat today, you've been really reliable. Can we make sure that you're there? And yes, it may mean that at worst case scenario, you are sat there in the waiting room for 10 minutes, which is far better than you get at the dentist or the doctor, but it means that we can get through them all. All right? Any questions to me? And we'll get back to you, Elliot, on the formal wear or not. I'll have a chat with Mr. Godfrey about that, and I'll let you know by tomorrow. Okay? All right, guys, have fun, and I will see you in a week's time or a week or two's time when you do your presentation. Bye-bye.